Thank you. Good afternoon. Still figuring out all the dates. I'm very happy to be here. I've had for many years, I've been working with MIT, the open courseware team, and others. So it's always good to share our experiences and to learn from each other. If you have any questions in between, please ask them. I'm open to that. Sometimes I will say I will come back to that later on. I already got an introduction, so we'll skip that. So what I will talk about today, a little bit about TU Delft, because I don't think everyone is familiar with my institute. A little bit about our history, what we've been doing, our open and online education program, and then what's really about the impact on campus education. So my university is a publicly funded public university in the Netherlands. We have 14 public universities in the Netherlands, and we are the biggest engineering school. And we have bachelor programs, master programs, and currently we have 25,000 students on campus. And it's growing quite a bit. A little bit about all our programs. It's all in science, engineering, and design. It's very small. You can read it afterwards. More important is what's putting a lot of pressure on our institute is the growing number of students. Because we're a public university, we have to admit all Dutch students that meet the criteria. We can't restrict that. And even we can't restrict European students that meet the criteria. So, and that's very hard for an institute to continue to struggle with. For example, our bachelor programs, computer science, this year grew from 450 students to 900 students in 1 year, doubled. That's putting a lot of pressure on our teaching staff or researchers. And so, yeah, we've seen in 2008, we had 15,000 students, and now we're on 25,000 students. And we are not seeing a slowdown yet. So that's a little bit feeling, I think, and that's a difference with MIT. Also, our classes are mostly at least 100 students, usually much bigger. So the biggest is 900 students. A little bit history around open and online education. We started with OpenCourseware in 2007, based on the concept of OpenCourseware here at MIT. We thought, hey, that's a good idea. Let's do the same thing. And we've been involved with the OpenCourseware Consortium. Now it's called Open Education Consortium, also since the beginning. I know Steve and Brandon from that time. In 2013, we joined the edX Consortium and started with our MOOCs. Our first MOOCs were launched in September of 2013. On solar energy was the first one. And that was the start for us to start with our open and online education program. Really to take the next step for our institute in moving online. And we didn't have any online program. We didn't have a lot of online experience. But we thought, hey, as a university, online will be the future. And we want to be one of the first to move into that direction. And now we've had an extension of the program. And it is really part of our now strategy of the university. So it's fully embedded in the program. And open is also really embedded in the university, in our strategic framework. It's one of the main principles of our strategic framework. And here you see our open statements in our strategic framework. What for us is really important that we try to deliver all our course materials with an open license. We do that especially for all our MOOCs. All the course materials of our MOOCs are openly licensed, and it makes it also much easier to reuse that materials in a campus situation. And that can be in our campus or one of the other campuses of other universities. Going to the open and online education program, I wrote that proposal with a couple of colleagues in 2013, and it got approved in 2014. And it was really, we could start a new department and hire experts to really help the teachers in making online courses. Our goals were set as educate the world and improve the quality of education. So it is the outreach, but also that way improving our campus education and improving education in general in our university. Because we've saw this as kind of accelerator of innovation within the university. So we had a strong connection between what we're doing online and what we're doing on campus from the start in our program. The way we set it up is that we assigned an E-Dean and a Director of Education to have that academic leadership of our program. And two sides. One is the support. That was my responsibility, really supporting all the teachers. And then also research and innovation. We don't have a school of education in our university, so we really had to start up also a research project around online education to really learn what works, what doesn't work. Here you see an overview of our MOOCs. I think this is around 90 MOOCs. I think we have 20 or more in development, but I don't have a course image yet, so I can't put them up. And it's quite diverse. When we started with our MOOCs, they were all on bachelor level, and now you see much more variety. From we have a MOOC for programming Scratch for 8-year-old children, to like a MOOC about topology of condensed matter that's really focused on PhD students. It's quite diverse, and more they're focused on working professionals, because we see that's the biggest group of learners in our MOOCs, next to our campus students that are also using our MOOCs. When we started with our program, we defined a couple of products. If we look at it now, it's much more intermingled, but it still helps to explain it a little bit. So first, we had OpenCourseWare. You all know that. It's just the course materials with an open license on our OpenCourseWare website. There's no interaction with the faculty, no certificates you can get. It's just there, and a lot of people are using that as self-learners, but also in different classes on our own campus and other universities. Then we have our MOOCs. As I said, mostly it was bachelor level when we started. It's the full experience of a course, so it includes the activities and assessment, and you get a certificate of completion. Yeah, you probably know that. Then we started with professional education courses. We first started with 1 or 2 on the edX platform. That didn't really work for us because they wanted lower prices than we wanted for the courses, so we're actually now offering them on our own open edX platform. And we have raised the prices quite a bit successfully. We got more enrollments because we raised the prices. It's always interesting to see. Those courses are really focused on small groups of learners. Usually, typically, it's about 20 to 100 students. And they pay, on average, about €700 for a 4-week course. And they get a course certificate and what we call continuous education units. Usually around 4 to 6 weeks. Our research showed that is the preferred length of professionals. If it's longer, they have more difficulty fitting it in their schedule. They also, those courses are developed with a workload of about 4 hours per week. And that's, if you compare it to a regular campus course, that's usually with a course load of 10 hours a week. That doesn't work for a professional. And then we have our online academic courses. Those are the online variants of an existing campus course. And that means they are fully accredited, part of a master or bachelor program, also small numbers of students, and those are heavy courses. Most of the participants in these courses are PhD students that are needing to do these kind of courses. Although we see some professionals into that, really experts. We have most of our online academic courses are about aerospace engineering. And we have a lot of experts from the Boeing, Airbus, those kind of companies that are doing those courses. But they really get a day off in the week to do that course. And then what for us was really important is that we're using everything what we're doing online in a blended way on campus. So from the start, we've said we're using all our online courses in a blended way on campus. And that was mandatory to get the grant to support this. Of course, nowadays it's not just about courses, it's more also about programs. And we have now about 10 professional certificate programs, one MicroMaster program, one X-Series. Especially the professional certificate programs are really successful. You really see that that works with for professionals. Because we also design them for 4 to 6 weeks course, 4 hours a week. The MicroMaster program is much more difficult because it has to align with your existing campus courses, and that makes them much more heavy because all our master programs are research masters, 2-year research masters, and that makes it a difficult concept for us. When we started with our program, we didn't have any experience with online education in our university. So we actually hired people from around the world in our team. And what we did is, what we noticed is that a lot of teachers were stuck in the frame of a classroom. Like I'm standing here, their whole thinking was, hey, what do I do in the classroom? And we needed to let them think outside of that classroom. Hey, in an online course, that you don't have a classroom. Or if you talk about the classroom, it's the online learning platform. So we actually developed the online learning experience, we call it. It's got 8 principles, and we use this to let them think about those principles, what's important in my course. And it is meant to help them reflect and critical think about their course. It's not to judge them. There is not a perfect way to set up your course and what's important. You can read the different principles. And what we see is that if we look at the different courses, you do see some trends there. So if we look at a MOOC, you see that flexibility is really important in a MOOCs, that those are highest. In our online academic courses, you see the supportiveness is. There are small groups of learners, and they get a lot of extra support of the teacher. They also pay a big amount of money for the course. And in our professional education, you really see the focus on the contextual, how to apply it into your work. This really has helped our teachers to think about how to design an online course. And another thing what we've seen here, when we started, a lot of teachers, they had their campus course, and they first want to make a blended course and then move to an online course. And we actually noticed it is better to do it the other way around. So first make an online course and then make it blended. That leads to a better online course and a better blended course. It's very hard to convince the teacher because he has to make a bigger step. But if he does it, it leads to a better course. I hear a lot of so all our MOOCs are done in that way. So we made the MOOC and then made it blended. And I think almost all our professional education courses, so it's the way we work. So we actually stopped with the tendering for blended courses. We only offer a tender for online courses in any variants. What was important for us also was, of course, the quality. So we set up a whole process we call the education quality cycle, where it starts after a course is granted. It starts with, I think I've got a pointer here, yeah. It starts with an onboarding day. It's a full day where we'll inform teachers about what it is to do an online course. And we actually start making a course design and a planning for them. Really kickstart the process. Then they start the whole planning process, and we have an official kickoff meeting. And there we should have a final course design and a clear course team, roles and processes. And then the building starts. About 4 weeks before the course launches, we have a review meeting. In theory, the whole course is ready by that time, and there should be only small improvements. In practice, that's never the case. Or we've had a couple of courses that were really ready 4 weeks before. Usually, it is making a list of all the things that still needs to be happen. And actually, we have had courses that started when we only had the first 2 weeks ready. That's the practice, what you see, and I think I hear that at every university. Then we have the running of the course, and after running, we do evaluation. So I actually have a data analyst who will analyze the data we do during the course. We do a pre-survey, mid-survey, and post-survey. We analyze all the data, and C delivers an evaluation report, and that's used to make a course improvement plan for the next run. So we continue to have this kind of cycle during running of the course. And we use that model, the online learning experience model, in different roles. So we introduce it in the kickoff, use that guideline for the kickoff, use it as a reflection 4 weeks before, and then use it for evaluation. We actually ask students how they experienced the different items. So we actually get feedback from students if they experienced it the same way as the teacher designed it. A lot of times there is a difference. Also interesting things to talk about. Then we have, important for us is that we always say we work with a course team. And the course team exists of professor, teaching staff, a lot of teaching assistants we use. Those are usually students, bachelor or master students that are helping with creating the courses, and they get paid for that. And that really takes off the load for the professors. One of my e-learning developers is part of the course team, and that is really important for us. It's not, we're not just advising, but we're really part of the course team and are developing the course together. And then you sometimes have a course coordinator. And the learning developer can ask for extra support. So we have multimedia expert, instructional designer, teacher training available, evaluation, all those things available. And the learning developer can request those people to assist if necessary. It is, for us, crucial in development that the learning developer is part of the course team. That's really important for our success. To help the teachers through this whole process, we actually set up a whole website where it helps them through this whole process with all the relevant documents, templates, all things like that. And the website is open for anyone. Everything on there is CC licensed. So anyone is welcome to use it. Questions here? So we try to define our blended courses as we start with the learning objectives of the course and then start defining. And it sometimes means there will be less contact hours in the class. Sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on the course design. And that's leading and not how much class time there is needed.
Yeah,
And that's we don't want just replace a classroom by an online activity. That's not good blended learning. Is my experience.
So it varies.
Yeah, yeah.
My second question: the skill sets needed for an instructional designer and an e-learning developer. How do you differentiate?
So our e-learning developer has a pedagogical background. And so he usually has a master in educational sciences or something like that. Our instructional designer is more the technical person who knows how to put it in the platform. So it's a little bit different terminology than here in the US, I often hear. But he's the expert who knows more about edX than edX themselves know about it. We know things, how to do things in the platform, and edX asks us. That's that's the kind of guy. He knows everything. Yeah. All right. Then going to the impact on campus education. Give a little bit of background about our program and what we're doing. And I looked up at well, what are the important impacts, and I thought about these four. There are more, but they're not as clear as this one. So first of all, impact on our enrollments, enriching the portfolio of students, enabler for blended learning, and the relationship between education and research. So impact on enrollments, as I said, we started with edX in 2013, and you see the enormous growth in 2015, and it continues to grow in 2017 in our enrollment in international students.
What's the blue with the green?
The blue is master and green is bachelor program. And so in total, it was in 2013, it was about 1,000, and now it's almost 2,000 international enrollments. These are enrollments, doesn't mean they are admitted. Second, what we see there is that we get enrollments from many more countries. And countries where we are not doing any marketing or anything, and suddenly they come to our university. Also, we have seen an increase from the number of students from the US. And that's something we can directly relate. If we look at our, I've looked in 2017 in our international student enrollments, 12% had done at least one MOOC before they enrolled in our, for our program. Of course, I can't say what they did first, but it's a good indicator that it really helps our international influx. And actually, I've seen a couple of those students and are really excellent students, and usually in the best of their class. So that's good. One example I have here is a student from I think Nigeria, who started 2 years ago, and I think he graduated now. And he had done, I think he done a MOOC about data analysis. And then that was for him and major influences why he decided to enroll in TU Delft program. And it's interesting because data analysis doesn't have a direct relationship with the program he enrolled in. Some you see it clear, like we have a course about introduction to aerospace engineering. There has a very clear relationship with our aerospace engineering program. But some courses attract a lot of different students. We also just had last month our first student to complete our MicroMaster program. We launched that, I think it was in the February of 2017. So about a year and a half ago. We just had our first students to complete it. He's originally from Lebanon, and he was actually already admitted to our program and started studying in Delft in September. And now he gets a waiver for 16 of the 120 EC. 16 is about 1/4. So it saves him a quarter of time of studying in Delft. So that saves him a lot of money in staying in Delft and tuition fee. So that was the first to complete. And actually, what I said earlier is our MicroMaster program is aligned with our research master, 2-year research master, full time, and that makes it quite difficult to match it up because they want the MicroMaster program shouldn't be longer than a year, and to do that you need a study load of about 10 to 12 hours per week to get to 16 credits. Then going to enriching our portfolio. When I think we started to think about it in 2015, we saw there are so many great MOOCs. There are also a lot of bad ones. Can we enrich the student portfolio with these courses from leading university? And that's always difficult. But we actually managed to do that. I got a small video to explain it.
As a student, you want to expand your horizons and increase your knowledge. Maybe it's variety you're interested in, or flexible study options. Or you'd like to dig deeper in your area of study, but find that some interesting courses are not part of your campus curriculum. What do? No further. With the Virtual Exchange, you can expand your portfolio by taking high-level online courses from top partner universities around the world. And you don't even need to travel. The courses are varied and cover a wide range of topics. This way, you can take subjects related to your own field, but also follow courses in other areas that appeal to you. Interesting. Study and collaborate with motivated students of different nationalities and backgrounds and gain different perspectives. It's online, it's flexible. Just make time in your schedule and fit it around your regular study program. You decide when and where to study. And what's perhaps even more important is that you gain credits for it. Nice! So which course do you want to follow? Go to the Virtual Exchange website for more information.
So the concept is that a student of one university does a MOOC at the other university and actually does the exam at his home university. And the home university will give the credit. That way it makes a lot of things a lot easier. And the whole concept is based, there's no money transferred between universities. It's based on trust. So if you would give credit to your own students for this MOOC, the other universities will do the same thing. And so those are a couple of things that made this possible, because this can become very complex. And it has been successful. I see a question there. So we've asked all the universities for the MOOCs that are part of the program to fill in a kind of template describing what are the learning objectives, how much study load is it, and all things like that. And that's used to decide how much credit it is. And so we, because we have, I think, almost all credit systems in the world in our program, we showed in the templates about just how much hours are the students needed to study for that, and then they can translate it to their own credits. Brendan.
Students ask for certain courses to be in the program?
So for the first round, we selected certain courses and asked the teachers if they wanted to participate in that. And many of them were interested because we gave them some money. That always helps. And now we're more looking also into what are students interested in. And what we see is that actually there are a lot of students of our own university also doing MOOCs at our own university. But they're also really looking for certain courses that we don't offer. We're an engineering school, so a lot of more humanities and things like that we don't offer, but also a lot of our aerospace engineering students are doing a course on astrophysics at Australian National University. we don't offer that course, and now they can do that course.
Exams for your students, they're not taking the final exam from the MOOC and counting
No,
that,
the
right?
problem is with originally when we started, there was no online proctored exams in the MOOCs, so that didn't meet our criteria of our exam committees. So that's why we had to do an offline exam. Nowadays, the edX platform has that possibility, but it still means that you need to make that in your interim MOOC, but we didn't want to change the MOOCs as is. So it was something extra added to that. And not all courses are ending with an exam. Some you have to write a paper or do an oral exam. It really depends on what the teacher says. Here you see the different institutes. So from Australia to US and Canada. University of British Columbia in Canada, Rice in the US, a lot of universities in Europe, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and then a couple in Australia. And it is really interesting to work together with those different universities, different kinds of educational systems. And that's been really, we learned a lot. We started this as a pilot. It runs until 2020, and then we're going to evaluate it with the group. But I currently see a lot of interest in it, and more. We get a lot of requests from other universities to participate in this program. But we said we're not adding more now. We first have to get a lot of things in order before we can grow, because it makes it much more complex. And here a little bit about the topics of the courses that are currently in the program. Then going to blended learning. As I said, we are using all our online courses on campus, and it's always in blended way. We did a small research last year, or actually it was the year before, I see, about what were teachers doing with our MOOCs. So we actually looked at 23 MOOCs, and we used different information sources to get information. And what we saw is that some teachers were just referring their students to edX, follow the MOOC on edX, and then you will get a separate some offline activities as addition. That's one possibility. Actually, with the new GDPR guidelines, that's not allowed anymore, because we are not allowed to force students to create an account on edX. So we're looking for a solution for that. Other way is that a lot of them are completely copying the course to our Brightspace system. That's our internal LMS system. And you see some are using the full MOOC, some only content, some only the videos, some diversity. It really depends on situation. You also see some courses that are using content from multiple MOOCs. And that's actually what I really like, because then they start using open educational resources. That's what we wanted to promote. If you look at the didactical way, there's some are using as prerequisite, some are using the flipped classroom model, some are using an additional resource, and a lot of others. It's not that spectacular, but it's good to see. A couple of things, findings we had is that a lot of times campus students were used as beta testers of the MOOC. So they were actually getting the MOOC content first to see if it works, and then the MOOC was launched. Also the other way around, actually. Sometimes the MOOC was used to create a new campus course. Because the MOOCs are always a lot shorter and smaller, they created a new course that it was back to the essence of what that topic was about, instead of the bigger original campus course that was way too big and not really focused on what the essence was. We also see that cycle of improvement we created for our online MOOCs, that teachers started to use that for our blended courses, and that was also what we wanted, because officially all our courses are evaluated every year and improved and things like that, but often that doesn't happen. And this has helped to focus on that. And interesting discussions we had about had a direct access in our LMS versus the interaction with the broader community in the MOOC. For some courses, that broader community was really relevant for the learning experience of our campus students. So being part of an international community in the MOOC really made that topic much more interesting. If we look at our teachers, their feedback was that they saw much more engagement of our campus students in the courses. So that's really good. A lot of times students started to study the MOOC together in groups and discuss it. And that's how you really start learning. So it's not just watching the video, but doing something with it. We saw in most cases that there was an increase in the final grade and a decrease in student retention. That's also positive for our university. And what I said already, more use of open educational resources. And that's what for me is really important, that teachers, because they were reusing the content of their MOOC, also started to reuse content of other open content that they could find. And that's also what, as a university, we find very important. It does put some emphasis on the professionalization of teachers. They need training in how to set up a good blended course, how to design that, how to moderate online activities is something they really need. So we set up different courses for that, online workshops, trainings, different ways so that they can get that support, and that really helps them. But that is needed. One of the things you often see in a discussion forum, that a teacher wants to give the answer to the question instead of just re-asking another question or pointing a little bit in the right direction, but keeping the discussion going. And that's something they really have to learn to do that. One of the examples I have is Arno Smith. He's also here this week for that conference. He made our first MOOC, the solar energy MOOC, and he actually got more materials in his classroom. I don't know if that's a good thing, but he was very happy with it. Increased his pass rate, grades went up, and students really preferred it. And that was also important, that they liked the new setup. But he said it was very new for him, because in the classroom he was walking around and not talking, and that was quite difficult for him in the beginning. But now he really likes it. The only difficult thing is that often he is scheduled in classrooms like this, and then it makes it harder. I'll come back to that later on. What we've now have in our TU Delft Vision on Education that was approved late last year is that we'll continue to further develop different kinds of education, including a blend of online and on-campus education. So it's really part of the strategy of the university. And one of the things I already mentioned with Arno is that the classrooms needs to change. This is not a good way to do blended education. And actually, what we did is we looked at what kinds of classrooms do you need, what kinds of activities do you need in a classroom, and how do you set up the courses. And what we noticed with blended learning, you need many more courses, what's called mixed practice. So that means that you will have, at one moment the teacher is saying something, explaining something, next moment students are working together. And they want to change between that. And that needs a different kind of setup than this kind of classroom. So actually one of the new buildings we recently opened is completely based on this kind of concept, the mixed practice. I think I have here a more clear. Here you see, we still needed 120 students to fit in the room. So that's why we do have the terraces, because if we didn't have that, they couldn't see the screen. But you see the students are all set up in groups, here in groups of 8. Power outlets and white screens for them to draw on. And this is all flexible, so they actually can move it around and change that if they need a different setup. And this building opened in September, and actually what I hear from teachers, they say, oh, I assign a teaching assistant per level, and they will help those different groups on each level. And it's really helping them to make it a good blended course and blended experience in the classroom. And part of our activities in this way, we wrote a proposal for the European Commission to develop a European maturity model for blended education. And we did it together with EATU, Aarhus University, Tampere University, Dublin City University, KU Leuven, and University of Edinburgh, all European universities. And the idea is that we are looking at blended learning on 3 levels. So you have the ground level teaching and learning, really within a course and a program. And we call that the micro level. And we have within an institute certain conditions and policies that that enable blended education. And a lot of times they're not aligned. For example, that can be a classroom, but it also has to do with policy. Like teachers are paid based on the number of classes they give in a classroom, and not credits for their online activities. Those kinds of conditions, but it also means support, a good working LMS system, video production facilities. All those kinds of conditions need to be in order to make blended learning a success. And of course, you also have rules and regulations and policies on governmental level. So what we see in different countries, they have special programs to enable blended learning. Some are still really focused on the amount of classroom time. And that really doesn't work for blended learning if that's the focus. So we're actually working on a model that will help institutes to measure their maturity and gives them tools to improve that maturity. So we're currently working on this project, and it's ending in 2020. And it's really fun. And what I especially notice is that when I start talking about this, is the meso level is the important thing that there's usually the problem. There are a lot of activities already going on in the courses of enthusiastic teachers, and they can do a lot, but then they run into the problems into the institute that there are no facilities, they don't get support, it's not part of the accreditation, and all things like that. So a lot of focus will go to the meso level, because there's, I think, an essential part that didn't get the focus that it needs for blended learning. So the last impact is about the connecting research with education. We are a traditional research university. All our academic staff are basically researchers who also do some teaching. And their whole career is based on research. And that's always an tension there is, and especially when you have growing numbers of students. So that means they have to spend more time on teaching. That doesn't go well. So we've been working very hard on getting a better level playing field between the two. We're not there yet, but it's getting more attention, also be more important part of their yearly reviews instead of only their number of publications. Within our program, we actually also set up a research part, and We define it in 3 levels. So operational trends is just that's the course evaluation. And we have the fundamental trends, a couple of PhD students who are doing activities. And that all those activities will lead to insights, and we try to implement them in our online program, but also in our campus program, and do that in a systematically way. And still in setup, we're not there yet, but we do see the benefit of this. And for this cooperation trends, we're actually using external researchers, because we don't have our own researchers for all this. So we actually say, hey, if you have a good proposal, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of courses running, are you interested to do research in our courses, and does your research align with the questions we have? You're welcome to work with us. So here our research, our fundamental part, we have 4 PhD students currently. I don't know if it's the accurate number, but I didn't have time to update it. And what they're doing is, yeah, this is a setup they have. So gain actionable insights, increase the knowledge about it, and then design and implement intervention. Those are the most interesting ones. Really designing those new interventions. An example I have is our what we call the learning tracker. And we tried it out in our MOOCs. And actually what we did is showed how much time a learner spent that passed the course last time, spent on the different aspects of the course, and compared that to the own progress. And actually doing that gave them a push to do more. And that was interesting to see. What we did see, that it didn't work in all courses. So we also ran this experiment in our pre-university calculus MOOC. That is a much younger group. And those students couldn't change their behavior good enough, so they hadn't learned that. So this worked much better with more experienced students and the lifelong learners, the professionals. And the most interesting one is that we, in one course, we actually made an error and we showed the wrong data. And actually, also there, it worked the same way. The other aspect is that we see that teachers start to use MOOCs to collect data for their own research. So here's an example of Arno, who used his MOOC to get information about solar energy potential around the world. So he got, normally where you would hire, you get a PhD student and he would do a year to get all the data, now it's done in a couple of weeks in the MOOC. To collect a lot of data, and that way it makes it for a teacher, a researcher, very interesting to do a MOOC, because he can use it for research. And that makes that he's more interested in doing those MOOC and will spend more time on it. And it's more interesting. Another way what we see is that a lot of research projects are doing a MOOC as a dissemination of their research. So they're actually using it as an output. Instead of doing a couple of presentations at conferences, they're creating a MOOC, and that way many more learners will know about their research project than they will ever would have had with presentations. These are just a couple. I think we now have 8 MOOCs that are funded by European projects. I think we have a couple of minutes left for questions. Yeah, we have done some research on that. You design a course in a certain way that, and you will see that students, the different groups of students have different kinds of behaviors to go through. Somewhere on my slide share there are slides on that research. And it's actually really interesting to see the differences in behavior. And sometimes that has led us to change the course and design it a different way. Yeah, she was first.
Said earlier that there was a decrease in student retention. So how can you give an estimate of how much of a decrease?
I don't know. Depends on the course. So the system, I have to explain a little bit about the Dutch system for that. Students pay tuition and they can study for a year and can do as many courses as they want. There's no restriction how many courses they register. So a lot of them register for a course and will not complete it or will drop out. That's quite normal. So we actually have a lot of courses where quite high number of students will drop out. And what we saw is that those numbers dropped. I think in general, about 60 to 70% of people will pass the course a lot of times. So that 30% is, part of it is they dropped out of the course and part of it failed the course.
I know, I was trying
Yeah, it was good.
You had mentioned early on a course where the final exam was an essay.
Yeah.
So how do you get stuff like that graded?
So that's only for the small number of students that are in the virtual exchange program. Because we don't do that for the bigger groups. Although we have have set up a couple of systems to facilitate that. So we've done some experience with doing that based on keyword recognizing and counting those, and that already helps a lot to indicate in what kind of level of the essay is. In our MOOCs, yes, and in our campus courses, I think a lot of time also the case because we have big groups. If you have to look at homework for all students, for 400 students every week, you need a whole big group of teaching assistants to do that. Yeah, we have courses that do the same way, but we try to do much more digital. So we also have a Maple TA test server where we can do tests in exam rooms, and that can be scheduled every week.
Proof-based course, a math course, and we have not figured out a way to MOOC that. Or even do it as it's a flipped classroom here on campus. And we have to devote a lot of energy, hire graders and stuff, because we have not figured out a way to grade unstructured proofs that we ask students to write. We want them to learn to write them.
I can send you, we actually have done a really big program. It's called the Prime program. And that is all the math courses in our bachelor programs, and we all made them in blended courses. And so that is for about 4,000 students in the first year. We'll go through those courses, and I can get you information about that. I'm not the expert, but we've done quite a bit on that. Yeah, in the back.
Experimentation using virtual equipment, for example, embedded in your courses. No, like digital twins concept, for example, can be used for this purpose.
Yeah, we actually have in our open and online program also a focus on virtual labs and online games and things like that. So we've been running that in, I think, about 10 courses. We have done different things. That can be from making an online simulation of a lab and give students assignments to go through it. We have made 360 videos of certain water treatment plants and give students assignments, and they have to walk through that. We have made online strategy games for some courses. So we have a lot of different things. That wasn't the focus of this presentation, so that's why I didn't include it. Okay.
Several hands up, and I'm wondering if you're.
I'm available.
Okay, well, thank you at least for the formal part of it. And you're available to hear. Okay.
There was another question.